Two Sides Spiteful and Determined. Chapter 13. Get him. Isn't this the same route to the Boomtown Motel? Justin asked over the radio. Yes, it is, and oh look, there is the neon sign. Beth pointed out. Okay, so there is going to be a little dirt road on our right side that we have to cross the railroad tracks for. Grace explained as she read the map. Dewey said, "Ah, so that's what he meant by railroad." Scott and Dewey had hardly said 10 words to each other and had completely dropped what had happened. At least that's what they were hoping to fool. Scott was finally starting to realize the emotions getting to his son. Now is not the time to think about that though. Is this even still Los Campos? Justin asked. Yes, son. Los Campos has a lot of hidden parts that haven't been touched yet by the city. Scott answered. Should we keep our lights on? Felicia asked. It wouldn't make a difference. We need a game plan because we have to assume the worst. The darkness can be our friend and our enemy. It's not completely dark yet where they can still see us. Let's also assume they have some kind of sensor or cameras that will go off once we get closer. Scott explained. Remember what we have been told before, they are heavily stocked with weapons. Beth added, Justin, turn here. Scott's heart rate began increasing as they turned down the road. God is on our side, he thought to himself. A little house way in the distance stood with many vehicles surrounding it. Signs up and down the road read private road, no trespassing. Scott called over the radio, remember guys, no hesitation. These guys probably wouldn't think twice to shoot, so stay aware of your surroundings. We aren't here to hunt anyone else besides Tricky and Antonio. If we need to, we will call in Big Brother to handle the rest of the people. Grace said, all these cars look abandoned. Right, everyone who has ties to Antonio has spinner rimmers, and these just look like old beat-up cars they've been collecting. Beth replied. As they got closer to the house, there was a silence between everyone. Everyone could hear each other's heartbeat pounding out of their chest. You know what, Grace, you might just be right. There are no spinners here, nobody is here. Beth quietly said. Grace replied, maybe that's what they want us to think. A trail of dust being kicked up followed closely behind the cars. It took about 5 minutes to fully get to the house down this dirt road. From the main road, this compound just seemed like a little dot. Every inch they got closer, the feeling of eeriness set in. The sun had finally set and dusk was here. Scott whispered into the radio, they know we are here, so stay cautious. Tim snuck around to the back. Grace and Dewey surrounded all the windows. Felicia watched the driveway to warn the other if anyone was coming. Justin, Scott, and Beth took the front door. Back is calm and clear. Dewey reported. Agreed. Inside of house seems quiet. Grace added. There are some back sheds over there, someone should get around to those. They could have seen us coming and ran to hide in those. Someone should get around here. Tim said. Scott took a deep breath then pounded on the screen, we have warrants for your arrest, boy. We the house surrounded and shed surrounded, so don't even try to run. The screen is unlocked. Justin whispered. Scott kept banging on the screen to cause an echo. The screen creaked as he opened it and began hammering on the door. Someone has to be here. Scott said. Justin looked into the dirt lot. There is. Look. He pointed out a small little car with faded paint, no rims, and dark window tint. Beth yelled, you have 30 seconds before we kick this door in. Someone is shuffling in the back bedroom. Grace shouted. Scott ordered, do it, son. Tim and Dewey ran around to the front inside the house while Grace ran around to the back door. Beth and Felicia surrounded the windows. Search this place good. Scott hollered. Dewey whispered, this house is fucking scary. Agreed. It's been a while since I've seen assault weapons lying around in the middle of the floor where furniture should be. Tim added. Adrenaline was high as the bounty hunters tiptoed throughout the house into each room. Mattresses were laid wherever they could fit. Weapons were out in the open. Cups with syringes in them. Rolling trays with mysterious powers were distributed throughout each room. This house was similar to the carry-on circle house, except it was almost pitch black in here. Justin shined his flashlight under the only bed that was lifted off the ground. There were clothes and other objects shoved underneath the bed, but the flashlight caught something shiny. "He is right here," he yelled. Scott, Dewey, and Tim barreled in one of the bedrooms at the same time. Scott held his pepper ball gun up to the back of him as he laid face first on the floor. "What is your name?" "Caesar Kioka." The man mumbled. "We got him." The boys cheered.
"Yay!
"Run now, run now," Scott shouted. Tricky didn't put up a fight when Justin and Dewey lifted him off the floor. As they were about to walk out the front door, Justin stopped and asked, "Wait. Where is Antonio?" Tricky shook his head. "He's probably somewhere in the east side right now." "You're kidding. When was the last time you saw him?" Scott asked. "Probably a few days ago. He wasn't too happy when I said I would turn myself in. All I know is he wasn't in the house with me today." Tricky answered. "Okay, search the house good. We believe Gabriel would do that, but we have to make sure he isn't here. Dad, get Tricky settled in the car please." Beth, Felcia, and Grace watched from the front yard. Beth extended her hand for a modified handshake to Tricky's tied hands. "How's it, brother? Thank you for being so calm. You guys caught me before I could turn myself in. I was aware I could have gone in any day, but I was packing up my things to return to my mom tonight, then tomorrow I was going to go in. I tried to convince Antonio, but he would rather continue hurting the people he loves in order to stay out of jail. I think he knows if he goes to jail he's going to get his ass beat by a lot of people." Tricky explained. "You realize Gabriel gave you up, so if you know anything you need to tell me." "Oh, I fully believe that. The Mendozas have shown they were snakes the entire time I knew them. Beth, I truly can't give you any information that you have been told already. Catching Antonio can be quite impossible, but I know you guys can create justice for all these people he has hurt." "House is clear," Scott called. Tricky chuckled. "Once the guys here find out Gabriel was the one to give up this address to authorities, then it might be safer for both Gabriel and Antonio to be in jail." A light bulb appeared over Beth's head. Grace ran up to the cars. "Yo, I just got a call from an informant from an anonymous number and they said Antonio is on his way to Mexico. They'll kill him if he goes to Mexico. Everything his sister has done good for them he's gone and took it all, so they said if he ever steps foot in their village again then they're getting him." Tricky said. Scott joined in. "So you think he's still around here?" "Of course, even if he was on his way to Mexico, there's no way in hell he's still here in the States. He is here in Los Campos," Tricky said. Dewey whispered to his brother. "He is hesitant. He knows more than he is willing to admit." Justin took a closer look at Tricky. "Man, I hate to say it, but I think your rosary gave it away. I saw something shining and I didn't realize till now what it could have been." Tricky chuckled. "God was watching and knew this is what I needed." "You're trying, brother, that's all that matters," Dewey added on. Beth sat next to him for the car ride. She pulled out the infamous folder that has kept this case together. "Okay, Tricky, these are all the people we have caught that have been tied to the carry-on circle and that Gabriel has ratted out. Of course your picture will be added to this now. So please don't protect him anymore." Tricky looked at all the faces he had grown so close with. Hallie, Bryn, Marcos, and more. Caught in a crossfire but ultimately knew what he had to do. I know they just use us because they are all selfish people. I quit doing drugs months ago and it's been really hard, but I'm just trying to better myself. You have to decide what the right thing to do is. I see the change in you because you're not like the others. You and Hallie are very similar from what we have seen. This lifestyle takes a toll on you and it's hard to battle it on your own. Even though going to jail sucks, it'll give you time to regroup and decide where you want to go from here. Every time someone goes to jail and gets out, it's like a fresh start for them. It's what you do with your second or third or fifth chance that matters. Tricky smiled, thank you Beth, I needed that. I think I'm ready to take the bull by the horns. This time Scott and Beth walked Tricky into intake. I think he is just at a place of hurt right now where he is just lost in his thoughts. Beth said to Scott as Tricky was taken into the hands of the guards. He'll come around. Scott replied. But we are running out of time, honey. 12 more hours to catch the big fish. Scott ran over to the cars. Guys, we need to go back to the Mendozas right now. Before we do that. When Tricky was saying once the guys at the ranch find out it was Gabriel who doxed them, it gave me an idea. Beth smirked. Scott stopped before climbing in the cars. He made eye contact with Dewey and called him over. Son, I haven't forgotten and I've been processing what you've said. When this whole thing is secure we dash. Dewey interrupted, no need. Then that was the end. That's how the bounty men handled things. Scott nodded in acknowledgement then climbed in the car. The finish line was in sight.